And we're back in Diablo 4. And in this video, we're going to answer the question, which is better, a one-handed weapon or a two-handed weapon? Now, I'm not going to drag this out and make you wait till the end. I'm going to tell you it straight right here. The long and short of it is, they're both viable. It all really kind of depends on your build and what can you utilize to maximize your damage output. As long as the weapon has high damage and the stats that you require, go for it, whether it's a one-hander or a two-hander. There's pros and cons for both. In this quick little video, you're going to see two instances of where I switch the weapons, take on generally the same packs, and you'll notice that there's not much of a difference. And that's because, one, they're generally very close stat-wise. I lose a little bit of minion attack speed, but I gain a lot of crit damage. But it didn't change my crit chance. And that's because my build doesn't have a lot of crit chance right now. So when it comes down to it, if you have a good one-hander and a good source or shield, and it's better than maybe the two-hander you've been rocking, use it. Or if you've been using a one-hander and a shield or source, and you get a really awesome two-hander, use it. As you're collecting more and more drops, and you're finding these weapons, it's best just to compare. Is it going to give you more damage? Is it going to give you the stats you're specifically looking for? Whether it's added vulnerability damage, if it's crit damage. I mean, the biggest benefit of a two-handed sword is that it has an innate ability, an implicit, that it already has increased crit damage. And on top of that, you can roll that again. So you can have two sets of crit damage on one weapon. And on the flip side, with my one-handed weapon, I get the benefits from the stats on that weapon. And if I was running, let's say, a source, I'd get all the added benefits from that. Or in my case, I'm running a shield, so I'm getting the implicits of having some defense and my main hand increase, so I'm not losing any damage, plus all the extra added benefits there. So there's really pros and cons outside of that as well. One of those pros and cons is if you're using a one-hander and a source or shield, you get an extra aspect. That's the simplest, most blatant, obvious one. When you're running a two-hander, you lose that aspect. So if you want to get more aspects in your build, so maybe there's an extra one that really helps output damage, the one-hander might be the way to go. Two-hander, you're going to get those extra strong percentages. Like in a two-handed sword, you're going to get that higher crit damage, but you kind of lose that aspect. Another big one is, depending on the aspect, a two-hander will grant it 100% increase as opposed to just the standard aspect on a one-handed sword. Some of them will also give you 50% extra on an amulet, but if you really have a good aspect that you want to amplify its usefulness out of, you're going to want to put it on a two-handed sword. In this case, we have each time one of your summoning minions damages an enemy, they gain 24%. Attack speed for 3 seconds up to 72%. And on an amulet, that's more like 14 and 36. So sometimes you really just want to get that two-hander so you can get that massive increase on that aspect. Another big difference between a two-hander and the one-hander and secondary option is, depending on which one you pick, you can either go with a source, which will increase damage as well, or you can go with a shield that's going to increase your protection and defense. So if you're in need of more health and more block, shield's a great way to go. That's what I've been using as the summon necro. It helps when one of your passives is, if you take no damage, your minions have more attack speed. It's kind of critical that you don't take damage. But in the end, what's the biggest piece is, are you going for a specific build with like a specific stat increase, like crit chance or crit damage? You're going to want to make sure those are on your pieces of gear. Which is going to lead us to the second part of this little video here, as we're watching me attack stuff. And I want to bring your attention to a website, and that website is called d4builds.gg. The full link will be in the description. And what this wonderful website will do is show you all the affixes you are going to find on each piece of gear. And you can filter it by class. Now, this is very important for a few certain reasons. One, it's always super helpful to look at, let's say, gloves. What kind of stats are you going to get in your gloves? All stats, dexterity, willpower, crit strike chance, lucky hit, damage to injured enemies, so on and so forth. Now, these are for all the classes. Then, if you're running Necro, as the gloves disappear for me, what are the Necromancer-focused stat bonuses that you could roll? For example, critical strike damage with bone skills, ranks of Blood Lance, Blight, Sever, Blood Surge, Bone Spear, shadow damage over time. Now, another wonderful use case of this website is, and I'm not going to take credit for this. This I saw from Gazzy TV. He has some wonderful guides on Icy Veins for Diablo 4. Big time Necro player, big on PoE, some great stuff. He mentioned, and I'd love to bring it up here, is we're going to utilize rings for a second. Now, you'll see that they're the implicits, and this is the affixes I mentioned earlier on the swords. So the two-handed sword gets that crit damage. That's its implicit. That'll always be there. Now you have all of your all classes. That's wonderful. You can see that you can get some crit strike chance, lucky hit chance, all of this stuff. And then you're going to scroll down a little bit and see that, oh, Barbarian has 5 things that they could possibly roll if they're re-rolling rings. Druid, that's 8. Necromancer, 12. So what he recommended, and it makes a lot of sense, is if you're on your Necromancer and you're trying to re-roll a ring, and let's say you really want to get crit strike chance on your ring, let's say you have some other stuff, you have damage, you have lucky hit, you're just missing critical strike, to save you some money, make a Barbarian. Jump on a Barbarian, put this in your stash, re-roll the ring as a Barbarian. That way, you're not going to get bombarded with all of these extra options while you're trying to simply get critical strike chance. You're only going to maybe hit one of these a few times, the 5. 5 extra options in the all classes compared to 12. Your odds are way better. So I highly recommend taking a peek at this. If you need to re-roll a stat and be like, well, I'm looking for something specific, and oh boy, Necromancer has way more options than a lot of the other classes. I kind of don't want to, waste the gold re-rolling this. It's just a good idea. And the site is just overall super helpful in general if you don't know what's going to roll on these pieces of gear to begin with. Maybe you didn't know on boots, specifically, you're just going to get some stat increases, resistances, and movement speed. You're not going to get anything other than that. So it's a super helpful resource. Highly recommend you pull this up, especially when you're comparing your gear, looking at what maybe you're missing and what you could re-roll for. With that, I hope you found this helpful and useful. It's a bit of a short one. I just wanted to get straight into the point. Didn't want to keep you on the hook. I hope this leaves some fears too, worried about if you need to run a two-hander or if you need to run a one-hander. You don't. It's whatever you can utilize that's going to give you the most damage, the most increases into the stats you're specifically looking for. Don't stress. And if you're trying to maximize the aspects, go the one-handed route. If you're really going for that crit, the two-hander. Those are your options. Don't overthink it. Don't stress too much. As long as it has high damage and, specific good damage stats on it, you're good to go. One-handed or two-handed. So with that, thank you so much, as always, for stopping by and checking out my videos. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!